Hey everyone, despite all of the bad press lately about Dungeons & Dragons, I want to talk about a few ways that I think Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is better than Pathfinder 2nd edition. First of all, simplicity. This is the go-to answer for a lot of people that want to compare the two games, and I think there is some truth to it, but I want to be clear about what we mean. When it comes to the depth of the characters and the worlds and the stories, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition and nearly any role-playing game are limited only by the imagination of those at the table. Simplicity in this context means it's easier for the new player to get started with it, and during the game the rules are much more streamlined. Even a quick look at the character sheets and you can see how it will be easier to get started with Dungeons & Dragons. There's a fraction of the fields that you need to complete and far fewer calculations and decisions needed to get your character built so that you can start playing. And then once you're playing, the game has less complexity. My go-to comparison is to look at how critical hits work in both systems. In Dungeons & Dragons, a critical hit is a natural 20. That's it. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, every single check has a degree of success, and a critical hit is based on how far over the target your result was. A natural 20 has a completely different impact on this. Another example is when your character is dying. In Dungeons & Dragons, it is a flat d20 roll with a DC of 10. Succeed 3 times before you fail 3 times, and you're good. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, it is still a flat d20 roll, but the difficulty class changes every time you make the save, and your damage might carry over if you get knocked unconscious again, causing the DC to change even more. I'm not saying that this simplicity is always better, but if you're just getting started and you want fewer mechanics, then Dungeons & Dragons might be the better choice. The next thing that Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition does better is backgrounds. These are both role-playing games, and you are playing characters. Both games have backgrounds. But Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition takes this a step further and really emphasizes the personality of the character. With each background, you get to select traits and goals and ideals and flaws, all things that give your character depth and allow you to really immerse yourself in the role. And then inspiration points even provide a way for a dungeon master to reward players that make great effort to do things that are true to their character. I'm not saying that you cannot do this in Pathfinder, but as part of the core rules, this is much stronger in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And finally, advantage. This could easily have been something that contributes to the simplicity of the game, but it was such a large part of D&D 5th edition, it deserves its own call out. Pathfinder uses a traditional role-playing game approach of rolling a d20 and then adding any bonuses and penalties to determine the result. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition introduced advantage or disadvantage to determine most outcomes. If you have advantage, then you roll 2d20 and you take the higher result. If you have disadvantage, then you would take the lower result. There may still be additional bonuses that get added, but most of them get rolled into advantage and disadvantage rolls instead. And this makes all parts of the game, especially combat, super fast. The mechanic is really simple to learn and it's really simple to use, and that puts it ahead of Pathfinder. Now, I'm sure that for every item I have listed here, there will be those that say that I am wrong. And I am not saying that these are right in all cases. And I'm definitely not making an overall comparison between Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder. I am just looking at this from the perspective of a new player that is wanting to get into role-playing games for the first time, and those that are wanting to play a really fast game that is light on rules. And if you're making a choice between Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition, then these are my reasons why I think Dungeons & Dragons would probably be the better choice for you. But what do you think? Did I miss the mark? For what other reasons would you put Dungeons & Dragons ahead of Pathfinder 2nd edition? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Love to hear from you as always. Until next time, take care.